The content I'm going to talk about in today's video, it's a heavy one. So sit down, buckle up, and just be ready for it. We spend a lot of time on this channel talking to people about how to quit nicotine, how to quit vaping, how to quit smoking weed, how to quit watching pornography or adult media content. And the premise of this channel is really talking about all those addictions in combination with one another. The other day, we had a member of our AddictionMindset community comment asking, can you talk about smoking weed and watching porn? And when I saw this comment, the light went off in my head. I was like, oh my gosh, of course. I remember back throughout my experience with addiction, Friday night, go get some junk food, smoke some weed, watch some adult media content, and there you go. There goes another Friday night under the books. And people often ask me, Frank, why did you quit? What was your low point? What was a point that changed your mind? And when I was reading this comment, I was thinking about various low points in my life. And I've said this joking around before in my videos. When you're quitting an addiction, you just have to try and do 1% better tomorrow than you did today. That's your only goal. And if you've been in a situation where you're getting high, you're watching porn, you're eating a bunch of junk food, maybe you're consuming a few beers or a few alcoholic beverages with it, and you're chewing tobacco all at the same time, it's not very hard to do 1% better tomorrow than that day, than that moment. Now, this combination of things, getting high and watching pornography, I think is particularly dangerous. Pornography in and of itself does a lot to hijack our dopamine pathways and our serotonin pathways. When we enhance that experience and those sensations with weed, we're creating a 1 in a million experience for ourselves, right? Being high, watching whatever type of sexual fetish or desire you have on your brain at the moment. And I think the amount of dopamine that's released, I think the amount of serotonin that's released, that rush is so intense. One, I think it's exhausting. I think it's actually exhausting. People feel fatigued after doing this the next day when they wake up, physically, mentally fatigued. But two, I think very few things in life will compare to that rush on a physiological level, okay? Like the psychological aspect of that, getting high and watching porn. I think very few things in life will compare to that, especially if you have an addiction. And I'm not saying that in a good way, because if we look at what's actually happening in that moment, here you are, you're smoking weed, you're watching adult media content, maybe you're ripping your vape, and perhaps you did also get intoxicated during this time. That's not a really glamorous moment. Like, I wouldn't go around saying, oh, that was a high point in my life. In fact, I would say that was a low point in my life, a super low point in my life, and I've repeated that low point more than once in my life. So it's funny because here we are getting this super intense high, but at the same time, it's potentially creating one of the lowest points we've ever experienced on repeat over and over and over again. So I think it's particularly dangerous. Now, the question becomes, what do we do about this experience, and how do we stop? How do we quit? And in a situation like this, where someone's addicted to pornography and addicted to smoking weed, what most people find when we speak to them and when they talk to our offices is that it's the weed, smoking weed, that then triggers the person to go and watch porn. So you get high, and now you have to suddenly go and watch porn. So I always encourage people, start by not smoking weed. Start there. Try and put the weed down first. I think that's where most people need to start, because when you smoke weed or even, drinking alcohol, your inhibitions are going to be lowered. Your willpower, your ability to resist watching porn is inherently going to be lowered. That's why so many people will watch pornography when they're hungover, right? Their prefrontal cortex functioning has been damaged by alcohol, or maybe you got that weed hangover. It's been damaged. And now suddenly you have these intense cravings to watch porn and you can't resist. You can't resist. So I encourage people in these situations, focus on quitting weed first. I think of all the addictions I talk about, nicotine, weed, energy drinks, pornography really does require a certain degree of willpower. You don't need willpower to quit weed. You don't need willpower to quit nicotine. You don't need it to quit caffeine. You don't even need it to quit sugar. But you do need, I think, some degree of willpower to tell yourself no. Like, no, I'm not going to pick up my phone and watch that content. No, I'm not going to go on my computer and watch that content. And if you're consuming other substances that damage your willpower, then I think you're really going to struggle to say no to adult media content. Now, on top of it, I think what we also wind up experiencing is the chaser effect. So this is where someone drinks alcohol or smokes weed, and there's that high, and now maybe that high is wearing down, or we feel the urge to enhance that high. Well, if you've watched pornography before in the past or have an addiction to it, your brain knows, hey, how can I pump some more dopamine? How can I pump some more of this feeling? And you're trained, oh, I'll go watch porn. That's what I'll do right now. So this is that chaser effect. The same thing, you're drinking alcohol and then you have to top it off with some weed and some nicotine. It's the chaser effect. We talk about it all the time in addiction, and you just really have to be on guard for it. Now, I will say this. I have also seen and spoke to people where porn has been the trigger for other bad behaviors. So maybe they're trying to quit vaping. They go on a pornography binge, and suddenly they're back to vaping. They haven't smoked weed in 6 months. They're back to smoking weed, and maybe this person hasn't drank in a while, and boom, they're drinking alcohol again, all from a binge on pornography. And I'll say this about pornography too. We know this statistically during the pandemic, pornography boomed. I was fortunate. I had a YouTube channel to work on. Otherwise, I might have been part of the persons responsible for the growth in pornography during the pandemic, because here you are, you're in isolation. Pornhub's offering, free HD content, right? Trying to bring people in, taking advantage of isolation, taking advantage of loneliness, now I'm just on a side rant. I'll have to make a whole separate video about that. It's really actually disgusting is what it is. Because that's a time where you could have been trying to better yourself, but, you're up against this multi-billion-dollar marketing industry that is pornography, and you get sucked right in. Very, very sad. So my overall point is this. If you want to break this cycle of getting high and watching porn, I think you have to break the cycle of getting high first. That's where it has to start. And I think what you're going to find is when you stop getting high, you're going to have an initial decrease in your sex drive, and that's very normal for people. And then after a few weeks, a few months, that sex drive is going to return, quite possibly with a vengeance in a really positive way. But I think if you quit smoking weed, watching porn is going to be a lot easier. And if you need help quitting smoking weed, follow me into the next video, or follow me into the video description where I've linked a playlist on quitting smoking weed, because that's where I think you got to start. All right, I'll see you guys in those videos.